Okay, so in this video I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of the Hostcomm hosted dialer service. There's a natural sequence of events to these demonstrations, and that is to basically create a list, upload some data to it, and then look at the campaign settings, and then we'll get logged in as an agent, make a few calls, have a look at the real-time wallboard whilst we're doing that so you can see what it looks like from a supervisor point of view. And then we can look at some historical reports and perhaps listen to some cool recordings. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is that we've got two levels of login. We've got the administrator login, which is what we're looking at now, and then we've got the agent login, which we'll go into a little bit later. Okay, so just to start with then, what we're going to first of all do is from the main menu here we're going to select lists, and we're going to basically create a list which is a container for data. Okay, so we click on add a new list. I'm going to call this list say 101. I'll give it a name of demo. Again, demo for the description. But typically you would give the name, list and description something pertaining to the data that you're going to enter into it. You can run reports on lists. So if you were purchasing data from different suppliers, for example, and you wanted to know which one was producing the most sales, then you'd obviously make sure you've got the supplier's name and the description, and then you can run a report just on the sales status and see which is the most effective data and best supplier. Okay, we need to assign this list to a campaign. We're going to use campaign 1 today. Change it to active yes, and then press submit. Okay, so now if I look at lists, I can see that I've created a list called demo. It's got a lead count of 0, which means there's nothing in it. It's active, and it's assigned to campaign 201. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to load some new leads into that. Okay, so we click on load new leads, and then we're going to browse to the file. So I've got a file on my desktop that is full of basically my mobile phone number, so we're not going to disturb anyone in the real world when we do these test calls. That's test list nick mobile, and then we need to enter the name of the list that we want to put this data into, which is the 101. We put 44 for Great Britain. The data is already in the correct format at the moment. It's in standard format. If we were uploading a CSV file, we would simply check the custom layout button there, and then when we submit it, it'll ask us to match up the headers with our data with the headers of the dialer database. Okay, we don't need to do that today, but that's what you would do. We've also got the option to deduplicate the data, so we can deduplicate by phone number in just this list, or in all lists assigned to this campaign, or across the entire system. We don't want a duplicate check today because it's all my mobile phone number, so that would be a very short demo. So if I press submit now, we'll see it says 13 good and 1 bad. So there was 14 rows in my data. The top row was the row of headers, so there was no phone number in it, so it showed it as a bad record. So that's fine. So now if I click on lists again, I can see I've got demo data, I've got a lead count of 13, so that's all done. Okay, so moving on now to the campaign settings then. So if I click on campaigns, and we're going to be interested in 201 today, and click on detail view. Now there's an awful lot of settings in here. It's a very highly configurable server and software application. I'm not going to bore you with all of the gory details today, but I'll just pick out the pertinent settings and we'll go from there. So campaign name and description, fairly self-obvious. The web form here, the dialer is designed to integrate with web-based CRM applications. So if you've got a local server, you would put the address of it there, and then you can send a variable, which is denoted by that VAR there. So that variable, for example, would be a unique custom record ID number or something. So you can basically have it so that the dialer screen pops a unique record in your CRM application, assuming it's web-based. That's a very simple exercise to do. As you can see, it's just one line of code. Okay. Moving on, we've got allow closers, yes and no options there. So let's say, for example, your organisation has fronters and closers. So some guys that pre-qualify the calls, and then they need to pass it through to a more highly skilled person in the background to close the deal. You can set up what's called closer groups, so that you can just easily transfer through to one of those people in the background. So the dialer wouldn't be making outbound calls on those people's behalf. They would just be sat there ready to take calls from the fronters. Okay. And also you've got the option then to have an inbound and blended campaign, or just outbound. Okay, so there are your options there. So what that basically means is you'll be presenting a telephone number from this campaign. If you want people calling back in on that number to route back through to these same outbound call agents working from this campaign, then they would basically need to run a blended campaign. Okay. Alternatively, you can just present a phone number that's got nothing to do with the dialer, so they would call back in and it would go through to your main reception or some other phone system that's completely separate from this dialer. Okay, so that would then just be a purely outbound campaign. Okay, so let's have a blended campaign today. So these are the dial statuses that can be dialed from this campaign. You can add additional dial statuses. The list order is the order in which your data is being called. So let's say, for example, you've uploaded a CSV file. At the moment, it'll be calling it from the top down. If you're adding new data on a daily basis to an existing list ID, that data will be added to the bottom of that list. So you would then typically change the list order to up. Okay, but today we'll just leave it as standard down. Okay, you can also do things like list mixing. So if you have multiple lists assigned to the same campaign, you can assign different percentages from different lists to be dialed. So for example, you might have fresh data, but you want to mix it with some older data, but you want to call the older data less. So prioritise the newer data. Okay. We've got the drop lockout time there set to 72 hours. That's Ofcom regulations. The dialer can be set to be fully Ofcom compliant. I'm not going to dwell on that too much. Carry on down to these green settings here. Okay, so the dial method. Okay, our dialer can work in a number of different ways. Okay, it can work in a manual method whereby there'll be on the agent interface there'll be a click to dial next number button, so the agent is dictating the pace of the calling. There's a ratio mode, which is also known as progressive or power sometimes, whereby you dictate the ratio at which the dialer dials at, which is done in this next setting below here, the auto dial level. Okay, so a dial level of 1 will make 1 call per 1 agent logged in. Okay, so a dial level of 2 would obviously make 2 concurrent calls for every single agent logged in. Okay, there's a number of other things that you can do, like adapt override, which means you can basically flick between dial methods. So you can flick between predictive and ratio, etc., etc. But I'm not going to dwell on it too much. But basically, just know that you can work in manual, ratio, and also you've got 3 different types of adaptive, which is predictive dialing. Okay, whereby it's using an adaptive algorithm to calculate the pace of the dialing. Okay, you've got a few different methods. Hard limit would basically ensure that you do not exceed your drop percentage limit setting here, which is set to 3%, which is UK Ofcom regulations. Okay, and you can also have inbound manual campaigns, which allow you to make manual outbound dial calls as well. So very versatile, and also you can run multiple campaigns simultaneously. So you might have a cold calling campaign with some not particularly great data running at a high ratio, and you might have and also a campaign running to existing clients, which you want more of a personal touch on. So you might be running that as a manual campaign. Okay, so lots of choices. Today we're going to use ratio. I'm going to use a dial level of 1 because it's on my mobile phone number. If I dial at more of a ratio than 1, then the first call is going to get answered, the second one's going to hit my voicemail, and it'll all get very confusing. Okay, so I'll flick down. All of these different settings here are all to do with the pace of the calling. For example, the dial level difference target. We can target it so that the dialer's always got 1 call waiting for an agent or 1 agent waiting for a call, etc. Okay, so all slight variations on the pace of the dialing. Very flexible. It's one of those things that as you get into it more, you'll start playing with these settings more and more. Okay. Top of the blue here, we've got the auto alt number dialing. So if you've got more than 1 telephone number per record, you can choose for it to try the secondary number if you don't automatically get through on the primary number. And you can also have a 3rd and a 4th number for each record as well, and have it try those automatically. Okay. Next agent call. So the dialer's making calls in the background. It gets someone on the line. It needs to put it through to an agent. Which agent do you put it through to? Okay, so this is the setting here. So typically you're going to use the longest wait time, or the person who's taken the fewest calls. But another useful one there is the campaign rank. Okay, so obviously you can run multiple campaigns and you can give each user their own campaign rank for each campaign. So if you've got this set to campaign rank, it's going to try and put the call through to the highest available campaign ranking agent. So if you've got an agent who's particularly effective in this campaign and you want to make sure they utilise as much as possible, you'd give them the higher campaign rank and you'd use that setting there. Okay, we're just going to use longest wait time today. Not that it matters, it's only going to be me logged in. Okay, so dial timeout set to 30 seconds, so that's how long it's going to ring this the phone number for before it moves on to the next call. Okay, dial prefix there is that's basically we need a 9 to get an outside line from our data center. Sometimes you'll find that when you're uploading CSV files, it strips the 0 off the beginning of the telephone number, and if it does that, you can just add the 0 back on there if you want to. Okay, we don't need to today. Campaign caller ID, so this is a telephone number that's being presented whilst the agents are calling out from this campaign. As I say, what that is, it depends whether you're running a blended or just an outbound only campaign. Okay. Campaign recording. Okay, so the dialer's got integrated call recording. You've got a few options there. Never very self-explanatory. On demand means that there'll be a start recording button on the agent interface. All calls means that all calls will be recorded, but there's a stop recording button on the agent interface, so they've got the ability to disable it. And then all false, I guess, is fairly obvious. All calls recorded and the agents don't have the ability to stop it. Okay. Carry on down and we've got scripts. Okay. So the dialer's got integrated scripting. Okay. So if you had a Word document with a script you wanted the agents to read, you could paste it into here. But it's a dynamic script as well. So if, for example, you wanted to personalize the script, so let's say, for example, you'd uploaded the person's title and surname, then you would insert the title and surname from this data here. These are all basically the headers of the dialer database. So any data you've uploaded you can insert into the script. Okay, so all you would do is say, okay, I want to insert the title and then I want to insert the surname, and that would there be for and then you would just type your text around that. So hi Mr. Brown, for example. Okay, so fairly easy and obvious. Okay, so and then the get call launch, so basically as the call's being delivered to the agent, you then choose what you want to be presented to the agent. Okay, so if you're using a script, you present the script. Nothing would just populate the standard agent interface screen. If you were using this in conjunction with your web-based CRM, then you would basically pop the web form. And the other thing you can do is pop a form, so you can create custom fields for your data or a custom form. So for example, if you wanted your agents to capture data as they were on the call, then you can create various different fields, and they could be free text fields, they could be multi-choice fields, they could be radio button fields, they could be date fields, anything you like really. So you can create a form and then you could have the dialer pop that form to the agent. And some of those fields might be pre-populated and some of them will just need to be captured. So it's quite flexible and versatile. Okay. Moving on, we've got the answer machine message. So if you could pre-record a generic answer machine message if you liked, and basically send an answer machine call through to that extension to leave the message, so the agents don't have to leave individual messages on each person's phone. Okay. Here we've got the transfer comps. So if you have to hotkey to an external third party, you can set up speed dial buttons in here. And what else do we pick out? Okay, we've got so scheduled callbacks we've got set to yes here. So if we've got these active in the campaign, when the agents disposition a call as a callback, then this will pop up a calendar and allow them to put the time and date that callback needs to go live. Okay, there's two types of callbacks. There's any agent callbacks, which will basically just find their way to the top of the dialer to be dialed at the time and date they go live. Or there's agent-specific callbacks, which will basically alert the agents in their interface if they're logged in that they've got a live callback. They then click on that link and read up on the comments and detail, and then choose to either dial that lead or not, as the case may be. Okay. Drop action here is so the drop call seconds is set to 5, so that means basically someone picks up the phone but there isn't an agent free to talk to them within 5 seconds. That's going to be deemed a dropped call. What do you then do with that drop call? You've got a few options here. You can either play them some audio, which could be a noise of some description. You can just hang up on them. You can pre-record and play them a message. You can pre-record a greeting and play them a voicemail. You can put them through to an in-group, which is basically putting them into a queue until an agent is free, and whilst they're in that queue they can be listening to branded messaging or hold music, or you can give them a call menu so they can you can have some options on their keypad to press. Okay, we're going to leave it as audio for now. Here we've got wrap up seconds. So if you needed to write up notes, for example, in a separate application after each call, you could introduce a wrap up time. And then after the agents have dispositioned the call, they can basically then have a timer counting down, giving them time to put notes in another application. To be honest with you, not many of my customers use that because you can customize the dispositions to such an extent that that normally gives enough of an explanation as to what the outcome of that call was. Okay, DNC list stands for do not call. So there's a do not call list that's specific to this campaign, and there's one that's server wide. Okay, so the dialer checks against the DNC list every time it makes a call. So if, for example, you've just called someone and someone in the family's just died and you don't want to call them back again, then you would DNC the outcome of that call. Their number will get added to the DNC list, and then the dialer would not be able to physically call that number again. Okay, agent pause codes. So we've got you can be quite big brother with this dialer. You can when the agents are working in any of the automated modes, they'll have a pause and resume button. Okay, once they've pressed resume and they're off and running, the dialer is making calls on their behalf. If you then want to, if they then want to pause their session for any reason, you can force them to insert a reason code as to why. Okay, and those reason codes are fully customizable. You create your own. Okay. A lot of these settings now here are just to do with the look and feel of the agent interface. You can make it as informative as you like, or you can dumb it right down. You can allow agents to see the calls in the queue and grab specific calls from the queue, that kind of thing. We always suggest that you keep it as simple as possible to start with, and then as you get more familiar with the system, then you can add in functionality then. Okay, finally here I just want to mention we've got a blind monitor option. So when an agent's logged in, they've got a unique session ID number. Okay, if you're a supervisor and you've got a phone registered to the dialer as well, you can type in that session ID number to listen into that agent's session, and you can either let them know that you're doing that, or you can disable that warning as it is now, so they wouldn't be aware of it. Now that can either be a muted session, so if you dial 0 followed by the agent session ID number, then you're just listening in and you can't contribute. If you just put the session ID number in, then it's a three-way conference and you can contribute as a trainer, for example. Okay, so that's a very quick whistle-stop tour of the main settings. Lead recycling is an important one. Okay, so when you upload data for the first time, it's got a status of new. Once it's been called once, it's going to have a different outcome. Okay, so that might be an automated outcome by the dialer, such as busy, or it could be a manually inputted outcome from the agent, such as not interested or sale, for example. Now, some of those statuses you're going to want to recycle, and others you won't. Okay, so this is where we set up the recycling. So we've got status A, which is answering machine here. Okay, so every 7,200 seconds, it's going to try all the leads that are dispositioned as a status A, and it's going to try them 10 attempts. Okay, and then if they're still sat at status A, it would then sit at that leads at limit, would become 1, and that's a count there. Okay, so we've got that set up for all these different statuses here. You can create your own statuses, and then you can set up your own recycling rules on those statuses as well. So again, very flexible, and you can obviously adjust the attempt delay. So for example, busy there, we've got it to call back every 10 minutes because the likelihood there's someone in if it's a busy time. Okay, and we've got our pause codes here. So this is where we set up the pause codes. So for example, toilet, admin break, training would be examples, tea break, dinner, the usual kind of things. Okay, so as you can see, we've got toilet as a pause code there. If we wanted to create another one, very easy. Let's say we're going to have an admin break. And then we've got the option here of saying it's billable, yes, no, or half. Okay, so for example, you might not want to pay people for toilet breaks, so you say billable yes, and then add it. And there you go, job done. Okay, so the other thing I'd like to mention here, I guess, is hotkeys. Okay, so what you can do in the agent screen, if you've enabled it, you can say that hotkeys are active. Okay, to speed up the process of dispositioning calls as answer machines, then you could the agent would hover the mouse over the hotkey button. It would say active, and it would present what options are available to them. And these are the two options that would be available to them now. So if they press 1 on their keyboard, it would automatically disposition the call as an answer machine, and basically without them having to go through to the disposition call screen and hang up the call. Okay.